Over to Jolyon Palmer and Jack Nicholls.
Ready for the sixth race then of this 2020 championship. Lewis Hamilton leading, 107 points for the British driver, 30 clear of Max Verstappen and 34 points clear of his teammate Valtteri Bottas. It looked as though it was only going to be the two Mercedes up at the front of the order, but Verstappen, with a win at the last race at Silverstone, 2 second places before that, he's had a podium in every race that he has finished. He's the only driver to have achieved that. And as they pull away from the start-finish line on their warm-up lap, he will be starting in third position on the grid with a real chance of taking the fight to the Mercedes over the next hour and a half or so of racing. The revs rise, the cars pull away on their formation lap as it ticks over to 2 here on BBC Radio 5 Live. This is round 6 of the World Championship, the Spanish Grand Prix. So this is the grid as Hamilton swings into the first corner. He will start on pole position. Valtteri Bottas alongside him on the front row. Max Verstappen is third for Red Bull. Then it's the two racing points of Sergio Perez and Lance Stroll. Perez making his return, having missed the last 2 races, having tested positive for COVID-19. Alex Albon starts in 6th position. Then it's the two McLarens of Carlos Sainz, the Spaniard, and Lando Norris in 8th position. 9th is Charles Leclerc, the Monegasque racer, with Pierre Gasly completing the top 10. Sebastian Vettel is in 11th position. 12th for Daniel Kvyat, 13th for Daniel Ricciardo, 14th is Kimi Raikkonen, 15th is Esteban Ocon. Then it's the two Haas drivers of Magnussen and Grosjean. The two Williams of Russell and Latifi, and Antonio Giovinazzi for Alfa Romeo completes the top 20. So Hamilton will be starting on the soft compound of tyre. The whole of the top 10 have to start on the soft compound. Vettel in 11th starts on the medium compound, and everybody else, bar Kvyat, Magnussen and Russell, are starting on the mediums outside of the top 10. So interesting decision from Magnussen and Russell to go with the soft tyres straight away on what is going to be a flexible afternoon, I think, in terms of strategy. If teams can make the one-stop work, they will want to make the one-stop work, but they might be forced into doing 2 stops. Hamilton has won the last 3 Grand Prix here since Max Verstappen won in 2016. It's been Hamilton every year. Jolyon Palmer, what are you expecting from today's Grand Prix, strategy-wise, first of all?
It's between a 1 and a 2 stop. It's exactly the same as last week. Mercedes a bit harder on their tyres, probably will be forced into a 2 stop. Verstappen may be able to do a 1 or something different. The start is going to be crucial here. It's quite often you get the guys on the second row can pick up a big slipstream effect on the long run down to turn 1, and actually they all arrive down at the braking zone for turn 1 together, the top 3 or 4, and that's going to be a great opportunity for Verstappen to get ahead of at least one of the Mercedes off the line.
So the cars pulling into their grid positions now. That's Jolyon Palmer, former Renault F1 driver, alongside me, Jack Nicholls, in commentary. We've also joined, of course, by Jenny Gow.
Yeah, sun shining down in Spain. Temperatures about 30 degrees at the moment. And a statistic for you, 21 of the last 29 Grand Prix here at Barcelona have been won from pole position.
So Hamilton it is in that pole spot. We've already had a bit of a falling out, me and Jolyon, over the news junction, because I think Sergio Perez in 4th place is in with a shot of getting involved on the run down towards turn 1 in the very fast, slippery and a straight line racing point. He's going to have a big old slipstream as well as the cars make that 600-metre dash down to the first corner. 6th round of the championship here on BBC Radio 5 Live. About to get underway, the Spanish Grand Prix in Barcelona. The two black Mercedes are on the front row of the grid. Hamilton ahead of Bottas, but Verstappen is right behind them in 3rd position. And the race gets underway. It's not a bad start from Hamilton. Verstappen's coming with him, though, and is trying to get up alongside Valtteri Bottas, and I think he's going to split them. And there goes Lance Stroll in the other racing point to the inside of Bottas, coming into turn 1. Stroll sends it in, and Bottas all of a sudden is down to 4th position. Perez is going to get him as well around the outside. It's a disastrous start for Valtteri Bottas. He's still trying to go wheel to wheel. Hamilton leads, Verstappen 2nd, Lance Stroll is 3rd, Bottas is 4th, 5th is Perez, 6th is Albon, and then it is Sainz, Gasly, Leclerc and Norris, the rest of the top 10. So Norris has lost a couple of places on the opening lap. What a start from Lance Stroll, 5th to 3rd at the first corner in the Racing Point, but Hamilton leads Verstappen 2nd.
And that was the slipstream effect down towards turn 1. Bottas on the inside, didn't have anyone in front of him to give him a tow. Verstappen slotted in behind Hamilton, had a great draft, and then really opportunistic stuff from Lance Stroll. Started 5th. Perez didn't get a great start. He's dropped down now behind Bottas again. But Stroll, his teammate, did a great job at the start.
Oh, Leclerc sending a lunge in there on Pierre Gasly for 8th position. Wasn't quite able to make it. He came from a long way back coming into the hairpin left-hander of turn 10. And now, as a result, he's under pressure from Lando Norris, who thought about a cheeky round the outside move at turn 12. Has to tuck back in and doesn't make any overtakes there in the end. George Russell still running in 17th place and Lando Norris in 10th. But it's Hamilton leading across the line, 1.5 seconds ahead of Max Verstappen. And that's not the worst possible start for Mercedes. That would have been 2016, both of them crash out. But it's just Hamilton and Verstappen now for the lead. Bottas needs to get through the pack quickly ahead of Lance Stroll if he wants to have any impact on this Grand Prix.
It is bad news for Mercedes because they've got Stroll in the way of Bottas right now. Bottas is in a very quick car. He's right on the back of Stroll heading in towards turn 4. And actually, the Mercedes is so quick, he might be able to make that move stick quite quickly.
Daniel Kvyat is just about to pull off a great move round the outside at turn 5 on Daniel Ricciardo, the king of the overtakers. Gets overtaken round the outside at the 5th corner. Nice move there from the AlphaTauri.
That's Kvyat on the soft tyre with a little bit more grip at this stage. Ricciardo on the mediums. He'd made a place at the start with Sebastian Vettel as well. The two of them on the mediums running 11th and 12th. But Kvyat around the outside of turn 4. Really nice move there from the Russian.
Lap 2 of 66. Hamilton leading, Verstappen 2nd, Stroll is 3rd. Here's Bottas's radio in 4th.
So important to get through Stroll. We can still have a race.
Bottas being told it's important to get past Stroll. We can still have a race. Let's see if he can get him now coming down the start-finish straight. The DRS isn't active at the moment, the drag reduction system, so Bottas will have to do it the old-fashioned way. Out through turn 16, up through the gears. It's the sound of the Mercedes engine you can hear. He's going to get a nice tow. How hard is Stroll going to fight? I guess that's going to be the question. And Bottas isn't closing in enough. He's not going to make it this time around. Down into turns 1 and 2. Hamilton still leading, Verstappen 2nd, Stroll 3rd, Bottas 4th. Let's go down to Jenny Gao.
Yeah, notoriously hard to overtake at this track. You need a pace advantage of about 1.5 seconds to be able to do it. And the plan for a lot of these teams was to just almost park the bus, park your car in front of a faster car, and they will really struggle to get past you here. And that can really help you with strategy and doing the best you can in this race.
Lap 3 of 66, Jolyon.
Already nearly 2 seconds opening up between Verstappen in 2nd and Stroll in 3rd. And that's the time that Bottas is losing, sitting behind the Canadian. The battle for 3rd is going to be between Stroll and Bottas. Sergio Perez still running with them in 5th. Alex Albon in 6th as well in the other Red Bull. But Bottas is losing time here. He'll get DRS on the next lap, on the brakes down towards turn 10, into the final sector now. On lap 3 and a few corners time, Bottas will get DRS, but he's got to make this move on Stroll. We spoke on our Checker Flag podcast last night about how Bottas is not always the most aggressive racer. In fact, quite the opposite. He's got to get his elbows out now just to pass Lance Stroll.
Lap 3 of 66. Hamilton leads, Verstappen 2nd, Stroll is 3rd. The other Mercedes of Valtteri Bottas in 4th place at the moment, but he is less than a second away as they come out over the start-finish straight. As a result, the rear wing on the back of the Mercedes is able to pop open, giving him more straight-line speed. Here comes Bottas. Is Stroll going to cover the inside? He does. So Bottas is not able to make the pass there. He's going to get a reasonable drive up through turns 2 and 3, but he's not going to be quite close enough for a look into turn 4, because Stroll will cover that inside as well, surely. Indeed he does. And if you're Stroll here, there's no real harm in fighting Bottas. A lot of the time, you're wasting energy if you're fighting with a car that is quicker than you and is going to beat you at the end of the day. But Stroll's got a second and a half to his teammate Sergio Perez, then it's a second and a half back to Albon. So if he can keep Stroll behind, if he can keep Bottas behind, he could get a podium today.
And this is exactly how the start of the Hungarian Grand Prix was. You had Hamilton from Verstappen, and then Stroll managed to keep Bottas at bay for a very long time in that race. And ultimately, Bottas failed to make it back up to the top 2 by the end of the Grand Prix. There's a longer straight in Barcelona, but it's still a difficult place to overtake, and Bottas right now finding that out. They're heading down towards turn 13 and the final chicane, and the chance to open the DRS and have another attempt for Bottas. He looks a little bit closer this lap.
Hamilton leading 1.3 seconds only against Max Verstappen in second position. Lance Stroll is third, Bottas is fourth, and you're right, he's 6/10 back as opposed to 8/10 back previously, and he's getting a very good run here. Bottas, Stroll doesn't try and fight, doesn't cover the inside, and there goes Bottas up into third position. Still feel like Stroll, if he'd have covered the inside, would have had a chance of keeping on there, but Bottas is up into third place, albeit 4 seconds off his teammate.
So they've lost a lot of time there, the battle for third. But Bottas finally through, and that's an important pass there for him to get back in amongst the top three now. Verstappen pressuring Hamilton with the fastest lap of the race on the last lap, 1/10 quicker than Hamilton.
Vettel is fighting with Daniel Kvyat for 11th position. The order is now Hamilton, Verstappen, Bottas, Stroll, Perez, the top 5. Albon, Sainz, Gasly, Leclerc, Norris, the top 10. Vettel, Kvyat, Ricciardo, Magnussen, Raikkonen, the top 15. And then it's Ocon, Grosjean, Russell, Giovinazzi and Nicholas Latifi. The 20 drivers, still all the cars in the race at the moment. And we're just getting a replay of Lance Stroll just nicking a little bit of slipstream off everyone and being pretty bold on the brakes into turn 1.
Bottas was a little bit early on the brakes compared to Verstappen on the outside, Stroll on the inside, and then Perez actually came through as well at turn 3. But Valtteri managed to keep the throttle in enough around the outside to keep that place from a racing point. That would have been even more of a disaster for him. As it is, he's just set the fastest lap and now needs to get back towards Verstappen, 2 seconds away from the second place Red Bull.
Lap 6 of 66 here on BBC Radio 5 Live, the Spanish Grand Prix. Jolyon Palmer and myself, Jack Nicholls in commentary, and let's go down to Jenny Gow.
Yeah, just to let you know, the pit window we're expecting to open somewhere around lap 15. So the ones that are trying to get away with a 1-stop obviously will try and get their tyres to last longer. But if you're going to go for a 2-stop, then around lap 15.
OK, we'll keep an eye on that one. And we often see the front runners pitting first, as opposed to, Albon nearly got around the outside of Perez and almost got involved in a little bit of a tangle at the first corner, holds on to 6th place. But we often see the leaders pitting before the sort of rest of the midfield pack. But Hamilton leading only 1.3 seconds ahead of Verstappen still. So Verstappen still very much keeping Hamilton honest at the moment.
He's still done the important thing of getting ahead of one of the Mercedes, at least off the line. Passing Bottas was important because Bottas now back in third, can come back to him. Here's Verstappen's radio.
Gap is just starting to close a little bit on Lewis.
Yeah, I know, but he's driving super slow.
So that's interesting. Verstappen saying that Hamilton is driving super slow.
Hamilton does a personal best lap of the race this time around, 1/10 quicker than Verstappen. Bottas in third, pretty much the same pace as well, 2.2 seconds behind Hamilton out front, nearly 4 off Hamilton, sorry, 2.2 off Verstappen. And now the gap's opening up to 4th and 5th, the pink Racing Points and Alex Albon in 6th. So they're starting to spread out a little bit behind. We're going to get the top 3 breakaway. Once again, Albon's not going to offer Verstappen a lot of help in this Grand Prix. It's Verstappen in second, fighting the 2 Mercedes, Hamilton leading, Bottas in third. So from that point of view, they can pincer him in a strategy, but the Red Bull pace on the long run seems to be inherently better. We saw that last week, and the fact that Verstappen's ahead of Bottas means he can just focus on passing one Mercedes now for the next 59 laps of the race, rather than having to work his way past one and then the other through various pit stops or audacious overtaking attempts.
Lap 7 of 66, Hamilton leading 1.5 seconds ahead of Max Verstappen in the Red Bull in second position. If Verstappen was to win this Grand Prix, the gap at the top of the championship would come down to 23 points, which would be less than a race wins advantage for Hamilton as he comes into the left and the right at turns 14 and 15 at the end of the lap, and then accelerates out through the right-hander of turn 16 and down the start-finish straight in Barcelona. About a 45-minute drive probably from downtown Barcelona out near the town of Montmeló. And it is Hamilton who is leading into turn 1. Formula One's been racing here since 1991. And Hamilton is out in first position with Verstappen second, Bottas third. Stroll and Perez then in 4th and 5th. Albon is within DRS range of Sergio Perez as he tries to make some progress and get up into 5th position ahead of the Racing Point. Carlos Sainz is then a little bit further back. He's ahead of the Gasly, Leclerc, Norris, Vettel train. Well, actually, there's a bit of a gap from Leclerc to Norris. Then there's another train of Norris, Vettel, Kvyat, Ricciardo.
How are the tyres?
So Checo, tyres are looking okay at the moment, but they are at the hottest. So slip management now is critical.
Slip management is not test match special. What is slip?
Slip management, wheel spin, basically. Just not sliding the tyre and making sure you're smooth on the throttle, smooth on the steering. Because as soon as you get this slip, this sort of wheel spin sliding, you overheat the tyres even more. And Perez managing the tyres maybe slightly on the back of that radio message, but he's got Albon catching him. Alex Albon in the second Red Bull is just over half a second away from Perez. He's going to get DRS here. Perez isn't. He's still 2 seconds away from Lance Stroll ahead. Albon might have a chance soon.
Here they cut him out through the final corner at turn 16. He'll pop open the drag reduction system flap in the rear wing, making his way down towards turn 1. Maybe a little too far back this time around, Alex Albon, but he's certainly putting Sergio Perez under a little bit of pressure. That last time across the line was not too bad, actually. 4/10 slower than Verstappen, his teammate, and he's tucked up behind Perez. Okay, admittedly, he gets the DRS, which will help him, and Verstappen complaining that Hamilton is going slowly out front, but not bad from Albon.
Hamilton's managing the pace right now. 1.1 seconds the gap him to Verstappen, and he's driving slowly according to Max Verstappen. That's to try and save the tyres. Mercedes know their Achilles heel this year is to be too hard on the tyres. The slower they go, the kinder they are to their tyres, and it actually weirdly gives them a better chance of winning the Grand Prix. So if Hamilton pushes now hard, Verstappen can maybe go with him, and Hamilton will hurt his tyres more than the man behind him and make himself vulnerable later on. So he's just doing the strategic driving right now. Keep the gap over a second. Don't let Verstappen get too close to try and make a move, but make sure he's keeping the tyres alive. And that's why the pace is very measured.
Carlos, we still think plan A. Plan A, how's the tyre?
Yeah, it's okay at the moment. So happy with plan A. Just very low grip.
So Sainz at the moment, Jenny, happy with plan A on the pit stop strategy.
Yeah, and plan A normally means the one stop for McLaren, so they're looking to just try and get as many as they can lap-wise out of this tyre. They don't want to get the drivers to come in and then put them back out into a whole heap of traffic. We saw how hard it was for even Bottas to try and get around Lance Stroll, so they don't want to have to force their cars to come out into a whole heap of traffic. But the hard tyre this weekend, we saw teams scrabbling around to get more hard tyres if they could last weekend. This time, the deficit between the two tyres is so great, you want to stay off that hard tyre. So this is going to be a battle between softs and mediums and how many each driver can get to last how long.
Lap 10 of 66, Hamilton leading, still 1.4 seconds ahead of Max Verstappen. Then it is 3.3 seconds back from Hamilton to Bottas in third. He has now managed to gap 5 seconds to the racing points of Stroll and Perez. Albon still pressuring Perez. Here's Bottas's radio.
So wind has picked up 25 to 30 kph, tailwind into 9.
So Bottas being told that he's getting a tailwind into turn 9, which is a tricky place to have some wind, I'd imagine.
Fast corner, always difficult. You lose with a tailwind, a little bit of downforce, and the car becomes more unpredictable. Snappy oversteers, you're more likely to make a mistake, basically, and that is the fastest corner on the circuit, halfway around the lap. So that's something that all the drivers are going to have to watch out for. It means we've got a slight headwind down the main straight as well, which will help overtaking on the longest straight. The slipstream effect will basically be a little bit greater.
Lap 11 of 66. Hamilton leading 1.8 seconds clear of Max Verstappen, so he's just starting to stretch his legs a bit here, Hamilton. He went 0.3 of a second quicker than Verstappen on the last lap. He's 0.2 of a second quicker in the first sector. So is this the start of a little bit of a push for Hamilton to maybe try and make a bit of a gap before the pit stops?
Fastest lap on the last lap, more than half a second quicker than he'd done on any other lap so far. So randomly on lap 10, he's decided to give it a bit more beans around the lap. Here's Bottas.
We got target +1.
Target +1 presumably means the lap that he is planning on pitting on for Valtteri Bottas. Lap 11 of 66, so 1/6 of the way through the Grand Prix. And Bottas coming around turn 12. And Hamilton, again, very quick in the middle sector, so he's going to be a good couple of tenths up on Verstappen again.
Lewis picking up the pace.
Lewis picking up the pace is the message. And Hamilton again sets the fastest lap of the Grand Prix, another 4 tenths on Verstappen on that lap. So the gap now from being 1.2, 1.3 has now gone up to 2 seconds for Lewis Hamilton.
So it'll be interesting to see now if Verstappen can go with Hamilton. He's already lost a good chunk of time in the last 2 laps. Verstappen's last lap was similar to the last fastest lap that Hamilton did, but Hamilton's picked up the pace again, another 4 tenths, which means the gap now over 2 seconds. Is he able to keep up this pace, or can Verstappen respond in the Red Bull? How much has he been measuring his pace after we heard that earlier radio message of Hamilton's driving so slow? Not so much anymore, and he's just able to gap you, Max. So he needs to pick up something, because when they get to the pit stop window, if Verstappen's close, around a second and a half away, he'll be able to pressure Hamilton and Mercedes. But if he's dropping away as he is towards 2.5 seconds, that's just going to alleviate some of that pressure on the pit wall, the mechanics, and Lewis Hamilton at the wheel.
Yeah, half a second in this first sector, or in the first 2 sectors for Lewis Hamilton on Max Verstappen. So he is really putting the hammer down now. I suppose the question is whether Verstappen wants to go with him, because if Verstappen were to push as much as Hamilton, then he would have to pit at a similar time to Hamilton. But does he want to try and do perhaps a different strategy here?
The problem they've got is if Hamilton's going to be pushing hard now, going for a 2-stop strategy, as he pumps in another fastest lap of the race, half a second quicker than Max Verstappen. So he is really gunning for it now, Lewis Hamilton, opening up the gap. 3 fastest laps in a row. But still, if he pits, he's coming out in 9th place right now between Charles Leclerc and Lando Norris. He could well emerge in a load of traffic, which would cost him a lot of time. And with Verstappen still 2.5 seconds back, he wouldn't be out of the woods yet from pressure. So they need to clear a lot of these midfielders before Mercedes could pit back into clear air.
Sebastian Vettel under pressure from the AlphaTauri of Daniel Kvyat in behind, the renamed Toro Rosso team for this year. The Russian trying to get past Vettel for 11th position. Still Lance Stroll and Sergio Perez in 4th and 5th. Albon has now dropped back a little from Perez. The gap 2.2 seconds to Albon in the Red Bull in 6th position. Sainz, Gasly, Leclerc and Norris are the rest of the top 10. Vettel still the highest runner on the medium compound of tyre, so he's going to be going longer into this Grand Prix than everybody else is. And the sound you can hear is the AlphaTauri engine of Daniel Kvyat coming down the hill into turns 7 and 8.
Vettel not looking particularly happy on the medium tyre, didn't trouble the apex at turns 3 or 4. Now hooking it up a little bit better with Kvyat just behind, and Kvyat will get the DRS down the back straight now in towards turn 10, but he's nowhere near close enough to make a move on Sebastian Vettel on those medium tyres. And Kvyat himself was fighting a bit of oversteer because of the dirty air from the back of the Ferrari ahead, but also the soft tyres still look a bit quicker for Kvyat than they do the mediums on Vettel. So that's interesting in terms of the crossover point. But fighting oversteer, that's going to be the slip that Perez's engineer was telling him earlier on. And that's going to overheat them, make them degrade quicker as well.
Hamilton's lead up at the front now to 2.3 seconds with another best lap of the race, 7 tenths quicker than Max Verstappen. Verstappen not having an answer to that pace at the moment. There's the look from Kvyat. Vettel comes across, covers the inside line in their fight over 11th place. But Kvyat's looking a little bit racy, nicknamed the Torpedo a couple of years ago by Vettel, wasn't it? After their coming together in Sochi. Lap 14 of 66. Hamilton now, Jenny, 3 seconds ahead of Verstappen.
Yeah, and by Hamilton managing to have a strong start and keeping that first place, converting it from pole position, and Bottas slipping back, it means Hamilton has a clear advantage when it comes to strategy calls. He can make the rhythm for Mercedes. Mercedes will advise him, but he can make that call, and Bottas really has to follow on. So it's a little bit tougher for Bottas now. He's taken away any advantage that he could have had by trying to wrestle away the lead at the start of this race. So that advantage, that chance has gone for Bottas.
He's 2.5 seconds back at the moment from Verstappen in 3rd position. Hamilton still leading, 3.5 seconds ahead of Verstappen. But it wasn't a quick couple of laps and then straight into the pits for Hamilton, was it? He's kept this pace up quite consistently.
Yep, did another fastest lap on the last lap to bring the gap over 3 seconds. Now it's towards 3.6 seconds. It's just now stretching that lead Mercedes and Hamilton to Red Bull and Verstappen. And we are getting towards a pit stop window for a conventional two-stop strategy. Does Verstappen are they going to try and go for a one-stop, not try and respond? Well, Verstappen's just done his personal best lap of the race as well, albeit a couple of tenths away from the pace of Lewis Hamilton out front.
Well, presumably, if you can't hit Hamilton's radio...
So let's just keep building that gap and we can extend.
Building that gap and we can extend, so try and get further away from Verstappen and then we can go longer into the Grand Prix before we pit. Now, if Verstappen... To me, if Verstappen was trying to go with Hamilton and set the sort of similar lap times to Hamilton, and he's not been able to, then you wouldn't carry on doing the same strategy. Because if you do the same strategy in second place, you're going to end up in second place where you started. Or do you think the Red Bull attention now is mainly on keeping second place from Bottas?
Well, exactly. Can they fight with Hamilton for the win? Because Hamilton's just unleashed good lap after good lap, and the last one was 7 tenths quicker than Verstappen. 4.3 seconds now the gap, Hamilton to Verstappen. And at the moment, Verstappen looks like he's got no answer to the pace of the race leader. But he's still got 2.2 seconds back to Valtteri Bottas, who's not swarming all over the back of him. So finishing second at the start of the year would have been a great result for Red Bull. They'd have been chuffed with that until they won last weekend. Is this back to normality, and are Mercedes just a little bit quicker?
Lap 16 of 66, Hamilton leading 4.2 seconds now ahead of Max Verstappen in second position. Verstappen still 2.3 seconds clear of Bottas. Then it's 13 seconds back to Stroll in fourth position. Fifth is Sergio Perez, a second and a half back. Albon has dropped now 3 seconds away from Perez, but he's being told on the radio to manage all sorts of things. So it looks as though they're just sitting, sort of lying in wait at the moment in that Red Bull. Sainz is 7th, Gasly is 8th, Leclerc is 9th, Norris is 10th, Vettel in 11th, still just ahead of Daniel Kvyat, but everybody else is separated by 1.5 seconds or so.
The pit stop window as well. Hamilton shortly will be able to pit and emerge in third place again, ahead of Lance Stroll. He's 2 seconds quicker than the racing points right now, such is his pace, and that gap is now 19 seconds. So in another probably 2 laps, he'll be able to make his pit stop, come out in third, which will just save him all sorts of headaches of coming out in traffic, which would slow him down considerably in the pit stop phase.
Hamilton 4.4 seconds now clear of Verstappen in second, Valtteri Bottas in third, 2.5 seconds further back. Let's get news from Jenny Gao.
Yeah, speaking to the engineers ahead of this race, they were saying the problem with these tyres is they just suddenly fall off the cliff. So you'll be doing fine, and all of a sudden, if you're not in the right place at the right time and can't pit, you could potentially lose 2 seconds in a lap. So you've got to be really careful. The engineers are studying the data. They've got whole teams of people looking at computers, looking at the data coming back from these tyres to work out exactly when they're starting to lose performance, when the driver's losing pace around here, and they can react super quickly.
Absolutely no sign of that at all for Lewis Hamilton, still pulling away metronomically from Max Verstappen. The gap now nearing 5 seconds, and he's been pushing hard now for nearly 10 laps in a row, just extending the gap every time by 4 tenths, half a second, and he looks like he's going to be doing similar this lap around. 1 minute 23.3 for Hamilton. Here's Verstappen's radio.
Struggling with rear.
Copy, Matt.
1 minute 23.7 for Verstappen. So Verstappen lost 4 tenths to Hamilton and struggling with the rear. Doesn't look like their tyre management is any better than Mercedes right now. The pace is slower, and Verstappen's not happy on the tyres either.
And they're running out into the pit lane now, the Red Bull team, with a set of the hard compound of tyre. Now, is that going to be for Albon? It's for Albon. Into the pits comes Albon. Still a little bit surprised to see the hard tyre used. It was almost universally mentioned as a tyre that you don't ever want to be on.
That's a one-stop strategy for Albon that Red Bull are locking him into. But why have they pitted him there? That doesn't make a lot of sense. He's going to come out right in the traffic of Magnussen, Raikkonen and Ocon, all on the medium tyre. Magnussen, sorry, on the soft. Raikkonen and Ocon on the medium tyres. Albon's going to come out behind them in 16th place. Ugh. They're going to be going a long way into the Grand Prix. Why have Red Bull pitted in there? They pitted Albon way too early last week at Silverstone. It cost him results. He was running not far behind Charles Leclerc, finished 4th. In the end, Albon did get back to 5th. But Surely they've pitted him too early to go on the hard tyre, unless they had a problem with the soft tyres he was on.
Unless they can think now that the Racing Points might be forced to pit, and this is a bit of an attempt at an undercut, but I don't really see any evidence of that.
The Racing Points aren't super quick right now, that's for sure. Still on the soft tyres, nearly 20 laps into the race. So all this talk of massive tyre wear hasn't really come to fruition right now. Lando Norris has just done his personal best lap of the race, still on the soft tyres that he qualified on yesterday. And we're getting towards a third of the way through the Grand Prix.
That 19 of 66. Jenny.
Yeah, that hard tyre choice is a strange one. I've spoken to so many of the strategists, the engineers, who said you want to stay away from that hard tyre. One of the drivers, I think it's a McLaren driver, doesn't even have a new hard tyre for this race. They've used them all up because they didn't want it. They didn't like it. It's a second slower pace-wise than the medium tyre per lap.
Alba's just done his best middle and third sector on his outlap, so shows how much he was being held up behind the Racing Points. But he's about to be held up by a Renault.
Ocon trying to go around the outside of Kimi Räikkönen meanwhile at turn 1, and Räikkönen does very well to hold on to that place. They're battling over 14th position. The yellow Renault trying to get past the red and white Alfa Romeo.
And just behind them is Alex Albon, who's going to lose time unless he can clear these two very quickly. The Alfa Romeo has been a backmarker car for most of the season, and he's actually, Räikkönen, doing a good job in 14th right now, ahead of the Renault of Ocon. And then looking back, Albon now swarming over the back of Ocon, but all the benefit he was getting from trying to undercut on the new tyres is just lost because he's in this traffic now and shedding time but behind a squabbling Alfa Romeo and a Renault.
Down towards turn 10, and Ocon closing in on Räikkönen again. But as you say, Albon there in 16th position, getting really bulked up and bogged down behind some of the slowest cars in the midfield. Hamilton's lead up at the front now to 6.2 seconds. This is Verstappen's radio in seconds.
7 is horrible now.
That's increasing tailwind through turn 7. Entry to exit.
Tailwind, I don't care. Just tires. I have nothing left.
So Verstappen saying he's got nothing left on his tyres. The team saying, oh, it's a bit windy here, a bit windy there. I don't care about the wind. My tyres are gone. Here comes Ocon again on Kimi Räikkönen. Räikkönen covers the inside, and Ocon keeps going to the inside. Brave stuff from the Frenchman, and through he goes up into 14th position. Can Albon try and take advantage of that? He's quite good at overtaking Alex Albon. We've seen over the last couple of, and there he goes up the inside into turn 3 of Kimi Räikkönen, and he is going to gain a place now up into 15th position. That was a close one, though, with Ocon and Räikkönen down into the first corner.
I think Ocon knew what he wanted to do. They went side by side the lap before with Ocon on the outside. This time he just thought, I need to get myself to the inside, whatever the cost. Räikkönen moved across, and Ocon went right the way, halfway off the edge of the track on the inside, but got to that inside and kept it for the place.
You want me to repeat it again? This tire is dead.
You don't need to repeat again, Max.
So Verstappen, I think he's basically saying, why am I not in the pits right now?
Well, the reason for that is when he pits, he's going to come out right with Stroll and Perez. So they're trying to clear the two Racing Points. And at the moment, he's still lapping a second a lap quicker than the men in 4th and 5th, which would mean when he pits, he'll have better tyres for the end of the race with every lap he goes now, and won't come out in traffic. He's got Bottas now closing behind. Just 1.5 seconds away is Valtteri Bottas after that slow start, getting himself back into position.
I'm losing so much time. Who cares if I pit in traffic? I easily passed him.
Well, that's Verstappen's riposte to your suggestion that he'll come out in all of that traffic. He says, well, I'll easily pass them. So, yeah, he's focused on the race win, isn't he? He's 1.5 seconds ahead of Valtteri Bottas, but he's 8 seconds now off the back of Hamilton. Again, worth just noting the difference between the pace of Hamilton and Bottas. Bottas is now 10 seconds behind his teammate, who's in the lead of the Grand Prix. Admittedly, Bottas is up behind Verstappen, but he's not exactly putting the Dutchman under a huge amount of pressure. Charles Leclerc thinks about an overtake on Pierre Gasly. They're battling over 7th position, and now Max Verstappen comes into the pits.
Finally gets his wish then. Soft tyres to medium tyres for Verstappen. Long way to go on the medium tyres still for a man that's been very stressed about his high wear levels on the soft tyre, and he's going to come out right in the mix with the two Racing Points.
He's going to keep just ahead, isn't he? So that was one lap enough, basically. One lap earlier, he wouldn't have cleared the Racing Points. He now has cleared the Racing Points and is 30 seconds off the lead of the Grand Prix now. So Hamilton leads, but has yet to stop. Bottas second, has not stopped either, 10 seconds away from his teammate. Gasly, Norris and Kvyat have all come into the pits as well. Stroll is fourth, Perez is fifth, neither to stop. Sainz and Leclerc, the rest of the top 7, Vettel, Ricciardo and Magnussen, the rest of the top 10, but they are yet to pit. 1.9 second pit stop from Red Bull, remarkable stuff. Lap 22 of 66.
So Max Verstappen comes in after 22 laps. He's gone on to the medium tyre, which Pirelli reckon can get you 35 laps. That's not enough to get to the end of this race unless there was a long sort of safety car period to help him out. So it looks to me like he might be having to go to a 2-stop strategy.
Verstappen in third place then. The two Mercedes in first and second. Hamilton and Bottas separated by 10 or 11 seconds, 10.7 to be precise. And Hamilton still very much controlling this Grand Prix, isn't he? Looking very, very strong out front after the early laps, looking like he might not have it all his own way.
The Red Bull threat from last week seems to have evaporated. Travelling to Spain, Verstappen hard on the tyres, the first to pit, having been the best on his tyres last week, and Hamilton already was quicker and had made a big gap to Verstappen as well. He's now got 10.5 seconds to Bottas. That's Verstappen's race. It's whether he can keep Bottas behind for second place. We're back to a more standard 2020 where we've been for most of the other ones now.
Carlos Sainz pits for McLaren. So that now promotes the Ferraris of Leclerc and Vettel up into 6th and 7th positions. Leclerc on the soft tyres, Vettel on the mediums. And the message is to pit for Lewis Hamilton this time around. So he comes through the right-hander of turn 13 down into 14 and 15, but he too is going on to the medium compound of tyre, lap 23 of 66. So we'll see whether he can get these to the end of the Grand Prix or whether he's committing to a 2-stopper as well. Into the pits he comes. Off go the old soft tyres, on go the new medium tyres. Bit slow on the left rear, so Hamilton loses a couple of seconds, but now pulls away a 4.3 second pit stop. And has Bottas come in as well? Yes, he has. So the Mercedes team double stacking their cars. Bottas goes away on the mediums with about a second quicker pit stop than Hamilton. Where is Verstappen going to be? He's just come across the line now, so he is going to emerge still in that second place ahead of Bottas. Everybody on the same strategy at the moment.
Hamilton then with a slow pit stop. The left rear took a couple of stabs at getting on. The rear gunner there just not convinced that it was on first time, and that's cost Hamilton a few seconds. Now 4.5 seconds is gap to Verstappen as a result, and Verstappen did a good outlap as well, his best lap of the race. But the same situation is true at the start as now, really. The Red Bull seems to be not so good on his tyres this weekend. So Verstappen pretty much equidistant now between Hamilton and Bottas. Verstappen second behind the race leader. And they're all on the same strategy. Can they all get that medium tyre to the end of the race? Only Alex Albon so far has pitted for a hard tyre, and that remains an absolutely bonkers strategy for Red Bull.
He's still behind Ocon.
Yeah, he can't use any sort of pace right now. He's behind Ocon, who's behind Magnussen. There's a DRS train, and he's got Carlos Sainz on a soft tyre just behind him. So Sainz has locked into a 2-stopper here. Soft.
Jenny Gao.
Yeah, both of the McLarens, I think, have locked into a soft 2-stopper. Team radio.
So obviously we're nowhere near undercut range for Lewis, so control the peaks early on. I'll keep you posted on Bottas this time.
No, but how about we just focus on our race first, yeah, instead of looking to Lewis? Because clearly on the soft tyre we were not as fast as them, so we just make sure we do our job and let them do their job.
Get your head down, Max, please.
Interesting. I can't quite work, because for surely Verstappen is usually the guy being like, I don't want to just focus on, we've got to go for the win. We've got to try and attack the race leader, not just consolidate. He's the opposite of captain consolidation, So that's a bit of a surprising conversation there on the radio. I can't quite work out what that's about, to be honest with you.
He's got a beard.
I thought Sainz was going for the lunge there. I thought he was miles back from behind Alex Albon for 11th place, but then right at the death, he fancied a bit of a move. But yeah, I'm not sure what Verstappen wants them to do.
Soft tyres for Sainz against hard tyres for Albon. with that Red Bull strategy. The battle for 11th, which is behind Ocon in 10th, Magnussen in 9th, and they're all stuck in there, going at Magnussen's pace, basically. He's still on a soft tyre. Verstappen's got just a bit in his bonnet. He can see that he's not going to win the race, and now it seems like he wants to... I don't know what he's going to be happy with.
Yeah.
Extending the first stint he wasn't happy with, but that gave him the best defence against Valtteri Bottas. Now they're telling him to basically look after the tyres. It's all obviously to give him the best result they can possibly get, but Verstappen, I think he's just starting to get on their nerves now with the way that his race engineer came back to him. Just focus on what you got to do now.
I quite like a feisty bit of Verstappen on the radio. I'm all for that. Just spoken to the team, actually, at Red Bull about Alexander Albon and why they put him on hards. Was there a problem with the soft tyre that led to them doing that? No, that was the planned strategy. That's what they wanted to do. And he's still being held up behind Esteban Ocon in the Renault.
Makes no sense. It makes absolutely no sense for Albon. He had a duff strategy last week. And Red Bull, once again, seemed to have done the same thing. Pitted him the first of anyone onto a hard tyre that's not very quick. Might get him to the end of the Grand Prix, but he's losing so much time right now. Magnussen is doing a 1 minute 25.5. Albon's teammate is 2 seconds quicker. Max Verstappen towards the front. The Red Bull car can go a lot quicker than he's able to show right now in a big gaggle of cars that goes from Magnussen, Ocon, Albon, Sainz and Pierre Gasly from 9th down to 13th. And Albon was running 6th earlier on. He didn't need to do anything too wacky to get some good points.
That 26 of 66 here on BBC Radio 5 Live. That's former Renault F1 driver Jolyon Palmer. Alongside me, Jack Nicholls. We've got Jenny Gow with us as well, covering the Spanish Grand Prix after 2 British Grand Prix in a row. Forgive me. Spanish Grand Prix, Hamilton leading 4 seconds ahead of Max Verstappen. Bottas is 3rd, 1.6 seconds back. Stroll is 4th, Perez is 5th. 6th is Leclerc, 7th is Vettel, 8th is Ricciardo, 9th is Magnussen, 10th is Ocon. There's a whole train up behind Kevin Magnussen from 9th backwards, basically, because we've still got 4th through 10th yet to make a pit stop. Here's Bottas's radio.
These black overalls are hot.
These black overalls are really hot, says Valtteri Bottas. They changed to black overalls earlier this year as part of the End Racism message. They also changed the colour of their cars. But, yeah, Bottas not enjoying the overalls.
Absorbs heat.
Yeah. Pete Ainsworth says, using the hashtag BBC F1, what gets me is how the commentators keep sounding shocked about how the Red Bull threat's gone away. Last week's win was due to hot temperatures and soft tyres affecting the Mercedes. This week they're back to all-round harder compounds, so it's an easy win for Mercedes. Why were we expecting Verstappen to be in the fight today?
From the pace on Friday, really. It looked more encouraging for Verstappen. He looked to be a little quicker than Mercedes on the Friday long runs, but right now it is back to normal. And I guess if it's like this again in Belgium, we won't be surprised once again.
Lap 28 of 66, and we've got Hamilton leading 3.5 seconds now ahead of Verstappen. It was the medium tyres that Red Bull were very strong on Friday, with that aforementioned impressive pace, and Verstappen has been bringing the gap down to Hamilton 0.4 of a second or so a lap, because it was up to 8 seconds I think when the pit stop started. It's now down to 3.5. Lance Stroll has just come into the pits in the Racing Point and back out onto the circuit, but Verstappen's got a bit of promising pace now, but Hamilton, you would imagine, is just is managing the situation at the moment. And out comes Ocon to the inside of Kevin Magnussen, late on the brakes into turn 1, and Ocon makes the move stick, and Stroll has come out in front of these cars, crucially in front of Alex Albon, who sends it to the outside of turn 3. There, Alex Albon, right round Kevin Magnussen. Very nice move indeed from Albon.
He's making the most of these Esteban Ocon passes ahead of him now. The one before was on Kimi Räikkönen, this one on Kevin Magnussen, committed around the outside, whilst Magnussen had a big wobble on his old soft tyres. Have now done 28 laps. The soft tyre seems to be going a long way. I'm surprised the McLarens have locked into a 2-stopper here, because the 1-stopper looks like it's going to be the way that Magnussen's still going. Charles Leclerc's still going in 5th place, ticking along nicely as well. Perez still in 4th. And they're coming up to half distance in the Grand Prix. It's going to be a 1-stopper.
Magnussen under big pressure from the AlphaTauri of Pierre Gasly coming down into turn 10, but Gasly couldn't quite get through. Lap 29 of 66 here in the Spanish Grand Prix. There's one game in Rugby Union's Gallagher Premiership this afternoon. Northampton Saints against Wasps gets underway at 3 o'clock, and James Burridge will be watching.
And this match would typically be a sellout. Two sides targeting a top 4 place with bagloads of pace and expression. Northampton have their stars back and ready. Dan Bigger at 10, Courtney Laws on the back row. Wasps have been playing some sublime stuff before lockdown. Joe Launchbury returns to the engine room. Jimmy Goppeth and Zach Kibirigi have the skills and speed to cause problems. Just one side has won away from home on the opening weekend. No crowd noise to inspire. Instead, the hits and the shouts will reverberate around us when we get underway at 3.
Thank you very much, James. And in the Snooker World Championship final, Rolly O'Sullivan leads 13-8 at the mid-session interval. Here in the Spanish Grand Prix in Barcelona, Hamilton is leading 3.5 seconds ahead of Max Verstappen in the Red Bull in second place. Bottas is third, Perez is fourth, Leclerc is fifth, Vettel is sixth, and then it is Daniel Ricciardo in seventh, Stroll, Ocon, Sainz, Albon, the rest of the top 11. So now Albon is behind Sainz, although McLaren seems to be doing a two-stop strategy, but Albon isn't quite able to make the overtake yet.
Well, he's just been passed by Sainz around the outside. Sainz swept past Alex Albon on the hard tyres, Sainz on the soft. Now he can go and chase after Esteban Ocon, who Albon's been stuck behind since he pitted a while ago now. Into the pits comes Perez from fourth and Leclerc from fifth. So let's see where they come out in relation to that Sainz-Albon battle.
Perez on the soft tyres, now to a set of medium tyres, famous for making his tyres last a long time, Sergio Perez. Both Ferraris in the pits, so they're double stacking by the looks of things, and Perez emerges behind Sainz as Sainz sweeps around Ocon at turn 1. So Sainz goes up into 6th place for the time being, then it's Perez, then it's Ocon, then it is Alex Albon in the Red Bull in behind, still then waiting for Ricciardo to pit in 4th position, but everyone else has pitted. Lap 30 of 66. Hamilton leads, Verstappen second, Bottas third, Ricciardo fourth but has yet to stop. 5th is Stroll, 6th is Sainz, 7th is Perez, Ocon 8th in the other Renault yet to stop. Albon and Gasly are the rest of the top 10 at the moment.
Sainz actually making the soft tyres work right now. The performance of them is very good, and he's passed Albon, now he's passed Ocon as well. And was very, very close with Sergio Perez, who he's also got ahead of, but he'll have to stop again. That's the catch for Carlos Sainz right now. Great pace, but due another pit stop at some point. Perez out ahead of Ocon, thus ahead of Albon, who's still stuck in that traffic. And Ocon, he started on the medium tyres. He was always going to go a long way into this race.
Lap 31 of 66. Verstappen's still trailing Hamilton by 3.5 seconds. Bottas 1.9 seconds further back. Then it's Ricciardo in 4th, who has yet to make a pit stop. Then it is Stroll in 5th, Sainz in 6th, Perez in 7th, Ocon is 8th, and Alex Albon is trying to get past Ocon. And actually now Sergio Perez is trying to sweep right round the outside of Carlos Sainz at turn 1. Very nice move from the Mexican. He gets him into 6th position and will now try and chase down the 1.5 second deficit to his teammate Lance Stroll, who's in 5th at the moment, but it'll be a net 4th when Ricciardo pits.
Beautiful move, that one from Perez. Had to be done on the brakes, and just convincingly sent it into to turn 1 with Sainz on his inside, and he made the move stick. So that was what McLaren Racing Point must have been intending for him to be ahead of Sainz after the pit stop. It was so close. 1 lap later, he is there with a fine move.
Lando Norris struggling a little bit. He's now under pressure from Charles Leclerc. You touched on this earlier. I'm not sure I can even see McLaren getting points today, potentially. They're they're in 7th and 11th at the moment. Points go down to the top 10, but yeah, it's not working out brilliantly for the McLaren team at the moment, Jenny.
Yeah, they always feared coming here it would be a little bit of a weak spot for them. The start was crucial. They didn't get the start they wanted with Norris, that was for sure. He got stuck, clogged down, so I think it's going to be a long weekend for McLaren. They knew coming here that they were going to face an uphill battle, and I think the strategy hasn't helped as well. They've locked themselves into a 2-stop strategy where others are managing to do a 1-stop, so this is going to go backwards.
They're the only team that have to come in again to the pits.
Perez to the outside of Lance Stroll, the 2 Racing Points going wheel to wheel into the first corner. So Perez has very effectively closed in on his teammate. No team orders there at Racing Point by the looks of things. These two are very much allowed to fight it out, and Stroll has the place at the moment. They're 2.8 seconds behind Daniel Ricciardo and lapping a second a lap quicker than the Renault. So we'll see how quickly they can catch him.
That's going to be another chance for Perez, who pitted a couple of laps later than Stroll, and now he's on slightly fresher tyres, but seems to have a lot of pace on this medium set of tyres that he's got on now. Stroll defended to the inside. Perez thought about that same move that he did on Carlos Sainz the lap before, but couldn't make it through on his teammate this time. Big train behind Esteban Ocon in 8th place. Still, it's basically the similar train, apart from with no Kevin Magnussen now anymore. Magnussen's pitted and rejoined down in 19th. And now you've got Ocon 8th, who still hasn't pitted on the medium tyres he started on 33 laps ago. Then Albon, Gasly, Norris, Leclerc and Daniel Kvyat, with Vettel 5 seconds adrift of that.
Ricciardo 8 seconds up the road from his teammate Ocon, doing the same strategy in the other Renault, going very long on the first set of medium tyres before switching potentially to the softs, I would have thought, for the second half of the Grand Prix. Hamilton is leading the Spanish Grand Prix as we are at half race distance, 33 laps completed, 33 laps to go, and his lead over Verstappen is now up to 3.8 seconds. It was been fluttering around 3.5, and there goes Albon on Ocon. Albon round the outside at turn 1, the Red Bull ahead of the Renault and up into 8th position. Now Pierre Gasly will try and take advantage of that in the AlphaTauri, but up into 8th spot then has gone Albon, and well, it's going to end up being 7th once Sainz pits again, as Leclerc tries to fight with Lando Norris. Is going to end up being 6th, of course, when Ricciardo pits as well, but it's a strategy call they've made that doesn't really appear to have achieved anything. It's not necessarily a terrible bad strategy. He was in 6th place, he'll probably finish in 6th place, but it's not achieved anything.
No, it's a hiding to nothing to get back to where he was in the first place. This was a lovely move from Albon. Ocon defended the inside and Albon centred around the outside on the hard tyres, but the newer tyres compared to Ocon's 34-lap old mediums now. But it's a hiding to nothing for Albon. Here's Verstappen.
It's getting a bit dark towards turn 4.
Verstappen's after a little bit of rain, Jenny.
Yeah, I do see a large cloud gathering around that turn 4 area, so you never know. Maybe we weren't expecting any rain during this race. I think there's a 40% chance, which is fairly low when it comes to this track. Just spoken to Pirelli about Max Verstappen's tyres, just to find out what they think as well. He started on the soft, went on to the medium on lap 22. They say absolutely forced into a 2-stop. There is no way that tyre he's on now, the medium, could manage at 45 laps. So Pirelli say he will have to do a 2-stop, but the first 3 can afford to do a 2-stop, presumably, without too much damage. They're so far ahead of everybody else.
35 of 66. Ocon has now just lost out to Pierre Gasly, so Gasly's up into 9th place. Lando Norris is trying to fight his way through the Renault driver as well. Charles Leclerc is going to stick it to the outside on the exit of turn 5. Nicely done from Leclerc. He can't get past there, though, but it was nice to see him getting up and alongside and a little bit racy. He's going to have a great run now up through turn 9. Norris covers the inside into 9, and surely now that's an opportunity for Leclerc down into turn 10. Well, they wasn't actually able to stay that close, was he, as they get onto the brakes into the left-hander. So Norris defending harder than he is attacking. Leclerc trying to go to the outside at turn 10. He's trying, I think he's been behind Norris for long enough now and is quite keen to get past.
So much quicker in the Ferrari, but I tell you what, he's putting his car into some scary places. The outside on the exit of turn 5 is bad enough, but the outside on the exit of turn 10 was just begging for a wheel touch there, and they must have been millimetres away before Leclerc went over the sausage curve on the exit. How he must be wishing he had last year's Ferrari engine in the back, because the straight line speed is really bad and he can't pass Lando Norris despite having good runs on numerous occasions. Norris has had DRS from Esteban Ocon, who has finally pitted. He did 35 laps on a set of mediums from the start of the race, was ticking along okay-ish in the end.
Ricciardo has lost out to Stroll. Stroll's got up into 5th position, and the other Renault has been into the pits now of Esteban Ocon, losing positions hand over fist. Not 100% sure what Leclerc was even trying to achieve going to the outside on the exit of 10. They went very, very close to one another, but he was nowhere near alongside.
No, it was just begging for a shunt there. Leclerc with just the left front with the right rear of Lando Norris, and in the end he had to abort wide. So Ricciardo's still going. That's the interesting one. For these medium tyres, how long can they go? Ricciardo's still ticking along at a reasonable enough pace. He's just been passed by Lance Stroll for 4th place around the outside at turn 1, and he's now got a queue of cars behind him.
We are expecting rain at lap 50. Expected rain at lap 50.
So Vettel being told we are expecting rain after lap 50.
Ooh la la. When was the last wet rain-affected Spanish Grand Prix?
1996 is the only one I can think of.
Yeah.
When Michael Schumacher won in torrential conditions. I can't think of any others. Ricciardo has now pitted. That's in 14 laps time, lap 50. We've also had a lot of chat about, oh, it's going to rain, and then it never does. This year in particular, it feels like. And the Renault of Ricciardo has now pitted and come out in front of Raikkonen in 13th place, 7 seconds off the back of Vettel in 12th place. So Ricciardo will try and go to the end of the Grand Prix now on these soft tyres.
So what probably, if it doesn't rain again, which I agree, we've had so much talk of rain and very little of it, but there are some clouds, some big fluffy ones, which are normally rain clouds, looming over the backdrop of turn 4, as Max Verstappen said about 5 laps ago. Bottas has kind of got to do what Verstappen doesn't do now, to try and beat him at the end of the race. We're past half distance. Verstappen's 5.5 seconds behind Hamilton, who's just done his best lap of the Grand Prix, to edge out that gap by a second on the last lap. So Hamilton's still in control. Bottas 2.5 seconds behind Verstappen on the same strategy. If he could try and make a one-stop work, then that's the only answer.
Oh, Leclerc's spun. Charles Leclerc has spun down at the chicane of 14 and 15. Has he tried to be a little too aggressive in his attempts to get past? Well, he was quite a way behind Norris in the end, so we'll see what happened. Here's Leclerc's radio.
Engine stopped, broken. I mean, I don't know what happened.
Now, are we going to see a safety car deployed? Well, we certainly will. If Leclerc is stuck there on the exit of turn 15, that could make some changes. Now, the leaders are through already, down to turns 1 and 2. We're getting a replay of what happened now to Charles Leclerc. No, he was all by himself, coming into the left-hander of 14, and the rears just locked and spun him round, did they?
Yeah, I think the engine stopped whilst he was in gear, and basically that just snatched the rear axle solid, which put him into a spin, but he's got going again. So we're not going to see a safety car. He's going again,
but he's grinding to a pretty much a halt down the start-finish straight, so no safety car. Leclerc managing to reboot it.
No. There's something strange. I will box this lap.
I will box this lap, says Charles Leclerc, so he'll return to the pit lane, lap 38 of 56, and the Ferrari is going to be out of the Grand Prix. Hamilton leading 7 seconds ahead of Bottas. Now, is there any way of Verstappen still fighting Hamilton? Is it worth him doing the opposite to whatever Hamilton does, or does the focus have to be Bottas?
Focus has to be Bottas. The gap now at the front is 7 seconds. Verstappen doesn't seem to have enough pace or tyre life in his locker today to fight Hamilton, but he's at least got track position on Valtteri Bottas. That was the sign of the replay of Charles Leclerc, and you could just hear the engine cutting out, and therefore Leclerc just basically the rear axle was completely stalling, stopping in a hurry, and sent him pirouetting at the final chicane. I think that the Verstappen-Bottas situation, Verstappen, it looks to me like the soft tyre advantage is good enough that you'd go for a 2-stop right now rather than risk staying out on a 1-stop. So Verstappen maybe will go for a second stop because he's got a huge window.
Yeah.
Stroll's 50 seconds away from Hamilton. I mean, the top 3 have got, once again, a massive gulf between them and the rest. So Verstappen could do that, but then he's going to have to pass Bottas later on.
Big dark cloud over the back end of the track.
Yeah, copy Lewis was about to say there's a risk of rain. It's only slight, but it may be thunderstorms.
So Hamilton being told there is a risk of rain, but it is only slight, but a risk of thunderstorms, and that's the sort of worry, is that you can't predict storms. They kind of pop up out of nowhere. It's not like there's a weather front moving in. Jenny?
Yeah, Ian Ferguson, BBC's F1 weatherman, has said that the shower's approaching from the west-southwest. It's now about 10 kilometres from the circuit. On current prognosis, it may just miss to the west.
Be a another one of those. It's going to rain, it's going to rain. It's not. Albon's strategy. 7th place right now. On board, you can hear the man just behind him, Pierre Gasly in the AlphaTauri. If Albon's the only one of these guys that can go to the end of the race, then that could work out okay for them. But the 2 racing points ahead will go to the end of the race anyway, because their medium, they managed to extend their soft tyre at the start long enough. Albon, the best case is he's on a difficult race to get back to 6th place that he otherwise was in if he just did something normally.
So it's a curious one indeed for Alex Albon. Lap 40 of 66 as he comes up through turn 12 under quite a lot of pressure now from Pierre Gasly in the AlphaTauri, then dropping down the hill again through and into the pits comes Charles Leclerc. Then the team, are they changing his steering wheel? They're reaching down inside the cockpit of Charles Leclerc, but normally Leclerc can take out and put in his own steering wheel. They look very frantic down there. Without being to be disrespectful, he's done for the day, like his actual chances of the Grand Prix are done. And Albon pits again for the medium tyres. So, well, now it's just right. This has not gone well. Let's put a set of mediums on to the end of the Grand Prix.
What on earth is going on with his strategy today? He's now a lap down. Hamilton sweeps into turn 1, and in the background, Alex Albon emerges from the pit just ahead of Ricciardo. So that's who he's defending from. Verstappen's going to come through and put a lap on his teammate again soon. But I have to say, Albon's just been in traffic all race this time. He's not as quick as his teammate, but what on earth are Red Bull trying to do today with his strategy? Why pit onto the hard tyres for a sort of 20-lap stint to then go to the mediums? It's absurd.
I just don't understand the first pit stop at all, because, okay, give the hards a go if you're out of position or whatever, but wait till you have a gap to pit into and to come out not in traffic.
It's a bit like Vettel last week, where Vettel pitted into traffic and was very frustrated with the team. But Albon, he did that last week already. He already scuppered last week's race by pitting way too early. He should have gone with Leclerc to try and finish 4th, maybe get closer to the Mercedes and his teammate. Instead, Red Bull sort of mess around with him as a bit of a experiment.
Well, Nathan Marsden has just tweeted, hashtag BBC F1, one car on track has used the useless hard, and it's guinea pig Albon.
Yeah, that's what it feels like.
Is there any, as a guinea pig for Verstappen's race? Verstappen pits now, in other news, but do you think there was any chance that it was just to see what happens to help Max? I can't quite think why, but
it's the only thing that makes sense, that they would stick Albon onto the hard tyres, but right out into 3-4 cars of slow-moving traffic.
They're not even going to learn anything from it.
No, exactly. Verstappen's pitted medium to medium. That's his 2-stopper locked in then. Now, he's not going to get undercut by Bottas. He's basically pitted early enough to cover off that one. But will Bottas, what will he now do? Can he go longer, stick on a set of softs to attack, or attempt the 1-stop? I think the fact that Verstappen's pitted before the aforementioned rain of lap 50 shows that Red Bull now think that's not going to hit the track. So I don't think we're expecting that. Otherwise, Verstappen would have just kept going until the rain hit. But he's locked himself in there. Red Bull now at the mercy of what Mercedes will do to the end of the Grand Prix. He's a long way behind Lewis Hamilton, so this isn't about trying to beat Hamilton to the end. He's about 30 seconds away, having pitted. So Hamilton's got a pit stop to cover from Verstappen. But what will Bottas do?
And we do have our first retirement of the Grand Prix, Jenny.
Yeah, Charles Leclerc in that Ferrari, they decided enough was enough. He's out of the car just at the back of the garage. Looks like a very hot and sweaty end to his race. Disappointment, of course. So a no finish for Charles Leclerc in that Ferrari.
No finish for Charles Leclerc, but a very good lap from the Finn. Valtteri Bottas was the fastest lap of the race that time around. And now Albon has just come out of the pits. Sainz has just come out of the pits ahead of Alex Albon. So Albon will need to make this move ASAP. Looks to the outside of turn 3. Will he then dart back to the inside of 4? Sainz covers it off. And Albon fancies all the way around the outside of 5 and gets a little bit squeezed there by Sainz. I think there was enough room, but Albon backed out of that one. Didn't want to go Hamilton Austria again.
He's prone to some aggressive overtakes, but that one might have been a little bit too far. Sainz at his home race, never going to make it that easy for Albon to sweep all around the outside of him at turn 4. And there we go, he's lost a place on that strategy. Sainz on the two-stop as well, having gone soft, medium. Albon inexplicably went soft, hard, medium. Lo and behold, it was slower. It's the tyre that everyone's been wanting to avoid.
Stroll pits from 4th place in the Racing Point. So he was running quite well, Lance Stroll, in that 4th position, but he's now decided to come into the pits for another stop. On go a set of the soft tyres, and out onto the circuit he goes again. And we'll see where he emerges in all of that here, Lance Stroll. Through goes Bottas, then through goes Vettel, and Stroll is going to emerge in front of Sainz and Albon. So maybe just a covering off move there from Racing Point, but I think Perez can't afford to pit. He was behind Stroll. If Perez were to pit, he'd come out behind the McLaren and the Red Bull.
Yeah, so Racing Point then, very short stint on the mediums for Lance Stroll. That's unleashed Sergio Perez. But what will Perez do? Stroll then onto a scrubbed set of soft tyres. Carlos Sainz is having a very good drive here. Right up now, legitimately fighting the Racing Points until the end of the Grand Prix. But that's surprised me how short Racing Point called that stint. Obviously just to cover off the threat of the stopping Sainz and Albon. And as you say, Perez was behind Stroll. If he pits now, you'd have thought he's going to come out behind Sainz as well.
Keep an eye on Perez as he comes through the final corner now and stays out to complete another lap. We're just getting a replay of Albon's attempt to get past Sainz. He had all the grip but couldn't make it work at the outside of turn 3. Then coming down into 4, couldn't find the inside either. Here's Albon's radio.
Dangerous.
No, not really. Albon saying that the Sainz move was dangerous, but actually, to be honest, Sainz left him enough room if Albon had gone for it.
Yeah, that was fine from Sainz. There was enough room, and in the end, Albon backed out a little bit early, and Sainz was ushering him towards the outside of the track, but I don't think there was much harm in that from Carlos Sainz. So there we go. Now they're fighting for 8th place, Stroll, Sainz and Albon. Ahead of them, Daniel Kvyat and Sebastian Vettel technically don't have to stop again. They've switched compounds of tyre, but with 21 laps to go, you'd have thought they will be going for another pit stop then, which will put them back in towards 5th. What about Sergio Perez in 4th, having a very lonely race? Where's he going to fit out in this upper midfield battle?
It's all very curious, isn't it, to be honest, because we've got Norris who needs to pit again, you would have thought. McLaren and P seem to lock in early for a two-stopper. Kvyat's in 6th, Vettel 7th, 8th for Stroll, 9th for Sainz, 10th for Albon. Norris does pit now, indeed. And then outside the top 10, we've got Gasly, Ricciardo, Raikkonen, Magnussen, Giovinazzi, Ocon, Russell, Grosjean and Latifi. Russell is only 1.2 seconds behind Esteban Ocon in the Renault at the moment. Into the pits comes Sainz, out of the pits goes Sainz. Lewis Hamilton sets the fastest lap of the Grand Prix.
Norris in and out the pits, 2.5 seconds. Better pit stops this weekend for McLaren. But Norris is going to emerge behind the AlphaTauri of Pierre Gasly. That's where he was before the pit stops, and that's where he is after the pit stops as well. So that's a fight now, Lando, to get back in the points. 11th place, ahead of Daniel Ricciardo as well. And we've still got Kvyat and Vettel to pit from ahead of Norris as well. So he's still looking at some points.
Verstappen then is on the last lap pretty much the same pace as Valtteri Bottas. So 20 laps to go still, 21 laps to go. We'll see whether Bottas can make it to the end here, because Verstappen on the mediums is not exactly carving into the advantage of Bottas up in the front.
Well, right now, if Bottas pits, he's only going to be right on the tail of Max Verstappen.
On a new set of softs.
Exactly. It's going to be danger time for Verstappen if he does that. But what he wants to avoid is using loads of tyre right now to catch Bottas, and then Bottas pit, and he's got nothing left to defend once Bottas switches to that set of soft tyres at the end of the race. Daniel Kvyat pits out of 5th place, which unleashes Sebastian Vettel up into the top 5 for the first time in a while. But Verstappen right now is just, I'm sure, just managing his pace so that he's got something left to defend on against Bottas at the end of the race. As and when it looks like Bottas might try and go to the end of the Grand Prix, then I'm sure we'll see Max go for it and see if he can close down that gap. But it's 17.5 seconds. It's a big gap that Bottas has got to Verstappen.
Lap 47 of 66. Hamilton leading the Spanish Grand Prix here on BBC Radio 5 Live. He's 15 seconds ahead of Valtteri Bottas, who is 17 seconds ahead of Max Verstappen. Perez is in 4th. And then we've got Vettel, Kvyat, Stroll, Sainz, Albon and Gasly, the rest of the top 10. But there's still a lot to play out in terms of strategy. Jack Nicholls, Jolyon Palmer and Jenny Gow with you on commentary. Jenny.
Yeah, just having a look at Alexander Albon, and coming into this he had a strange pattern of tyres actually, so he's been forced in a way into the strategy to go onto the hard tyre. He's one of the only drivers that he only had 1 new medium, 1 new hard and then 4 used softs coming into this race, so it was a strange setup to even begin with coming into this, so they've been forced to have to use that hard in a way, but it's absolutely messed up his entire weekend.
Well, he could have used a used soft. Here's Vettel.
Okay, you need to let me know now what you want to do in terms of pace.
Understood.
Vettel wanting to know what he's doing in terms of pace, but that's what everybody else has done, is go on to their new mediums and then their slightly old softs.
That's exactly what Lance Stroll has done in the Racing Point. They used is 1 lap. They've done 1 lap of qualifying, and this is basically what he started the race with anyway. A tyre that had done 1 lap in qualifying, which coped okay early on.
Lando Norris trying to get past Pierre Gasly for 9th position and not able to get up and pass yet. The AlphaTauri of Gasly having a solid race here in that 9th spot and ahead of Norris, and ultimately has got ahead of Norris during the course of the Grand Prix. Started behind the English driver. Ricciardo is currently in 11th place. Then it's Kvyat, Magnussen, Ocon, Russell. Russell's 6/10 behind Esteban Ocon here. He's having a solid old race, George Russell. Ocon doing a 1-stop, but Russell doing a 2. But he is well within overtaking range of the Renault for 14th position. Not, you know, a huge highlight and an outstanding, and he's going to score points and get all of the plaudits, but a strong drive nevertheless in 15th place.
Yeah, highlight for Russell. It's going to be a real low light for Ocon and Renault in general right now. Ricciardo 11th outside of the points. He's got Daniel Kvyat, who's just pitted for some new medium tyres just behind him. So we might have to look in his mirrors for 11th at the moment, Daniel Ricciardo. And he's a good long way ahead of Esteban Ocon, who did that mammoth long stint in the first place to hold up Alex Albon. And into the pits comes Valtteri Bottas. So here we go. We're going to get a race for second.
So Bottas is going to go onto a set of the soft tyres. Off come the mediums. On go the softs. Away Bottas goes in a very quick pit stop time, 2.5 seconds. And he is going to come out behind Verstappen, but with punchier tyres. But is he a punchy enough driver to get past?
That's what we're going to find out. This is going to be crunch time for Bottas. He's coming up against a man that's ahead of him in the championship now as well. There's something for Bottas to prove, I feel, in the next 17 laps to pass Verstappen in the faster car, on the faster tyres, around a track that's not so easy to overtake on, and against Max Verstappen, who's not so easy to pass. So it's going to be interesting now. He's emerged 7 seconds away from the Dutchman ahead. And let's wait and see how this one unfolds then. They've jumped fairly solidly to a 2-stop. No chance of them doing a 1.
Hamilton is going to pit this time around as well. He'll come out comfortably in front of Verstappen. No, he's not. The radio message said box, box, but Hamilton has stayed out on track. So there we go. Does another lap. Jenny.
Yes, just looking at the weather, just to give you a quick update. The rain is falling. It's falling about 5 kilometres from the track. They said that the rain would be coming on lap 50. The clock has just ticked round to lap 50. I see no rain.
Go to the soft tire, man. Why are you going to go there? This tire's fine. Don't put me on the soft.
Okay, so stay out. Stay out. Stay out.
So that is why Hamilton hasn't come into the pits. He wants to stay out on the mediums.
And he's lapping quickly still, Hamilton. He's proving the point, really. Lapping similar pace to Max Verstappen behind. He's got a 32-second gap. So the rear right doesn't look nice. It looks quite blistered on the rear right. But Hamilton's saying from the wheel, it feels absolutely fine. Of course, what they want to avoid is a Silverstone tyre failure sort of situation. And they don't need us to help because they've got the gap to comfortably pit to stay ahead of Verstappen.
Lap 50 of 66 in the Spanish Grand Prix here on BBC Radio 5 Live. Hamilton leading, Verstappen second, Bottas is third. Lando Norris completes the top 10, the British driver, and the other is George Russell in 15th position, still up behind Esteban Ocon, trying to get up into 14th place. The sound you can hear is Lando Norris, who is trying to pass Pierre Gasly for 9th place at the moment. Hamilton does pit then, so the team have got their way. Hamilton comes into the pit lane with 16 laps to go as he crosses the timing beam, and it's mediums. There's another set of mediums on, so maybe that's what Hamilton was discussing, not necessarily the coming into the pits, but which exact tyres they put him out on. Look like a new set of mediums as well.
New set of mediums for Hamilton. Bottas was on that one-lap scrubbed set of soft tyres, and so different preferences at Mercedes, and Hamilton was pretty vocal about that on the radio. He's come out right into a heap of traffic, but they should all get out of the way, the slower cars, and allow Hamilton 15 laps on these mediums then, still with 10 seconds to Max Verstappen to hold on for a Spanish Grand Prix win. Sergio Perez still hasn't pitted for a second time, running in 4th place, running at an okay-ish pace. 15 laps to go on the medium tyres. Will he try and get to the end of the race on that, or is he going to go for a really racy last pit stop to go for a set of soft tyres? If he does that, he's going to have to do an awful lot of overtaking because he's got a pack of cars all fast approaching. He's going to fall down to about 9th, Perez, if he does another pit stop.
Yeah, an unnecessarily racy approach that would be, wouldn't it, from Sergio Perez, who had 5th pretty much in the bag. He's now under investigation, Sergio Perez. Just waiting on the screen to say, well, for ignoring blue flags. So that's a bit of a niche. Don't really see that much anymore, ignoring blue flags in Grand Prix that Perez is under investigation for. Here's Vettel's radio.
What do you think about going to the end with these tires?
I did this before.
Okay, so Vettel getting a bit annoyed with his team there. The team saying, what do you think about going to the end? And he's saying, well, I asked you that before.
And obviously didn't get much of a response. He's running okay, Sebastian Vettel, in 5th place at a decent enough pace. So right now it looks like he could give it a chance, because if he pits, he's going to tumble a long way down the order and be scrabbling around for the fringes of points at best. So 15 laps to go. The pace looks okay. He's in a similar boat to Perez, really, with 6 seconds between them in 4th and 5th.
That 52 of 66. Hamilton setting the fastest lap of the Grand Prix. Verstappen is 2nd. Now, his pace is fine over Bottas, to be honest with you. It's 0.6 of a second. Bottas was quicker on that last lap, and I would be surprised if that pace keeps up for the remainder of the Grand Prix from Valtteri Bottas, because we've seen him chasing down people over the course of the season so far. Vettel stays out to do another lap. Perez in 4th, Vettel in 5th.
I can do that. Well, let's try. We've got nothing to lose.
Exactly, at P5, that's what I was asking for.
Well, I think he's absolutely right, Sebastian Vettel. Nothing to lose, because if he pits, he might be able to, you know, scrape a little 10th or 11th. But if he can hold on to a 5th place, that'd be a pretty strong effort, to be honest, in this Ferrari.
Yeah, exactly that, really. At the moment, he's looking like it's a standout result, this. I mean, if he can finish here, he's on for driver of the day, Sebastian Vettel. Starting outside the top 10, now up in 5th place, trying to nurse those tyres to the end. But remember last week, Charles Leclerc did a mammoth stint to get a one-stopping Ferrari up to 4th place. Well, this would be a similar drive. The Ferrari does seem to be okay on its tyres this year. Vettel is on the softs, but they lasted okay in the hands of Kevin Magnussen earlier on. And right now he's still got 2.5 seconds back to Lance Stroll, and he's 5 seconds behind Perez. He's actually still lapping slightly quicker than Perez. They pitted on the same lap, Perez in 4th and Vettel in 5th, but they're on different tyres. Perez went from soft to medium, and Vettel did the opposite.
Only one Ferrari left in the race, Jenny.
Yes, the other one is out. Charles Leclerc had an issue. He had an electrical cut to his car, which was, they think, at Ferrari caused by the curb. Now, Charles tried to switch on the car again, but didn't manage to, so undid the belt, but then tried again. The engine started, but had to come back into the pit lane because the belt was unclipped then. So it sounds like a bit of a mess in the end, but he's retired from the race now.
Oh, so that's what they were doing, rummaging around in Leclerc's cockpit, I suppose.
Yeah, trying to get the belt back.
Yeah, that's pretty... It's a little bit dodgy to come back around with your belts undone.
He unclipped the belts and did a lap in the middle of a Grand Prix.
I wouldn't be surprised if that is if that sort of is the actual Not saying that it isn't the truth, Jenny, but you know what I mean. If that were an official thing that happened, then that is not good from Leclerc.
I mean, that's going to be...
That's
the
come
FIA
from
get wind of that.
Yeah,
We're talking
exactly.
about safety, everything that we talk about. You put the halo on the car, you have so many safety measures, and you've got a driver doing a lap in a Grand Prix with the belts undone.
That's remarkable.
Oh, wow.
Jolyon, is it possible to do your belt up in the car yourself when you're out of the... You know, what should he have done then? He got the car restarted, his belt's undone. You can't do it back up yourself, can you?
No, well, then you're out of the race.
You're out of the race. If you undo your belts, I mean, he's already basically out of the race anyway. He was plumb last, and having spun, the engine was off, and it was going to be a long way back. But, well, I wouldn't be driving around a lap of this 4.5K with 19 other cars still in racing conditions, and you're going around with your belts undone. No way. I mean, even if he's going slowly, you're still doing 150 mile an hour, say, instead of 180 at the end of the main straight. That's terrifying.
So Ferrari officially said that then?
Yes, Ferrari
Wow.
have just spoken to me. They've told me that's what happened. That's come from the official communications line at Ferrari. So that's what's happened.
Well, they are opening themselves up for a lot of trouble there then. I'm quite remarkably bamboozled by that, I have to say. Now, Sergio Perez has just been given a 5-second time penalty for ignoring blue flags. So we're just getting a replay of when it was, I would imagine, is he's coming down the start-finish straight. Blue flags are waving. He gets a blue flag, then he gets a blue board, and then he lets the Mercedes through into one.
We've got a 5-second penalty. We've got a 5-second penalty for blue flags of Hamilton.
No way. When you told me I move out of the way, man.
Well, that's well, obviously we haven't seen the whole of Perez's lap and laps previously, but
they're obviously stricter because Daniel Kvyat in 12th place is also under investigation for the same infringement, not letting the faster cars through with blue flags. Maybe the FIA are hotter on that this weekend after previous complaints, but from what we saw, Perez didn't do a lot wrong. Hamilton just came through at the end of the main straight. There must have been some previous to it, and normally you get a couple of warnings. It's not about necessarily passing 3 blue flags like it used to be back in the olden days. It's about letting the driver through when you can, when you come to at least a medium length straight. So Perez maybe didn't let Hamilton through down towards turn 10, kept him behind all the way through the final sector, and then let the race leader through, which wouldn't be very good, and therefore that is a penalty. But we've not seen that on the replay, so that's only a hypothesis. And Daniel Kvyat's been given the same penalty.
I think there's still going to be a bit more action left in this race. Let's keep it focused.
Albon then is being encouraged to that there's still going to be a bit of action left in this race. 11 laps left on the clock. A bit more action left in this race. Well, I wouldn't say we've used up our quota by any stretch of the imagination just yet. Hamilton leading 13 seconds ahead of Verstappen in second place. Bottas has got the gap down, but it's 3/10 of a second. Verstappen's finishing this one in second place. Bottas does not have enough to challenge the Red Bull, which is going to be disappointing for him when his teammate is 14 seconds clear of Verstappen in second place. Now, Perez is in 4th position. Vettel is in 5th. Lance Stroll has got the DRS and is going to try and challenge the Ferrari, and he's got such a straight line speed advantage that it's not even a contest. Stroll swoops around Vettel and gets up into 5th position. Now, Vettel is too far away to take advantage of Perez's 5-second penalty, but that's got to be Stroll's focus now to get up into 4th spot. Lap 57 and 66.
Stroll, with the fresher soft tyres, having pitted for a second time, is 7.7 seconds away from Sergio Perez. He should be able to catch his teammate, really. Won't need to pass him because of Perez's 5-second penalty. But certainly Stroll looking like he's having a fine drive. Looking at 4th place now with that routine move on Sebastian Vettel. Again, the Ferrari straight line speed just giving him nothing to defend this year.
Yeah, this will be interesting because Perez and Vettel came in at the same lap to change onto the tyres they're currently on. They've done a good stint on them. Just listening across to Otmar Zaf now on the pit wall for Sergio Perez, he says the tyres are looking good. He thinks he can go to the end of the race and is encouraged. Now, can Vettel do the same, or will he give up and have to be forced into coming in and doing another pit stop? Losing places now to Stroll, and it'll be an interesting battle to see if Stroll can get Perez and get within that 5-second penalty time as well.
He's pretty much there already. He's just got loads in one lap. He's 3.1 seconds quicker than Perez on the last lap. I imagine Perez was getting out of the way of, I think it might have been race leader Lewis Hamilton again, that Perez was letting pass, so lost a lot of time. But Stroll is going to get within 5 seconds of Perez to the end. Perez and Vettel pitted the same lap, but they've got different tyres on. Vettel's on the soft tyre, which will be less likely to make it to the end of the Grand Prix than Perez's medium. Just shame for Perez, he's got that 5-second penalty because Vettel's got Sainz behind him. Sainz has got Alex Albon a few seconds behind him as well. Then there's Pierre Gasly and Lando Norris. If the tyres do fall away for Perez and Vettel, that 5-second penalty for Perez could cost him a few places by the end.
Yeah, Vettel at the moment in that 6th place, Sainz in behind. 8th is Alex Albon, 9th is Pierre Gasly, 10th is Lando Norris, the British driver. The other British driver is George Russell in 15th position now, ahead of Kimi Raikkonen in the Alfa Romeo, and only a couple of seconds behind the Haas of Magnussen. Still a strong run this for Russell, lapping much quicker than Magnussen as well. Magnussen on the last lap was horribly slow, slowest driver on the track by a long way, so maybe an error for Magnussen, or had to get out the way of the race leaders or something like that, because that can't be a representative lap time from the Dane. Lap 59 of 66, Hamilton leading, Verstappen second, Bottas third, Perez, Stroll, Vettel, Sainz, Albon, Gasly, Norris, the rest of the top 10. We are watching a replay of Kimi Raikkonen, maybe. Here's the radio.
What the f***, that idiot did it. I was already turning and he almost took me off.
That was Magnussen. He was trying to get past Kimi Raikkonen. Bit of a late move over in the day. No apologies. It was Romain Grosjean for 16th position. Now Vettel is only just ahead of Sainz in the McLaren, and the Spaniard will want to get up into the top 6 if he possibly can. And if he can even further to that, as we were just discussing, close in on Sergio Perez and take advantage of that 5-second penalty. But that might be a bit too tough an ask for the McLaren,
because Perez has raised his pace suddenly, and actually Stroll just 2/10 quicker on the last lap, and the gap is 5.1 seconds. So we've got a 7-lap time trial between the two racing points, which I still think Stroll should win on the fresher tyres. But the question now is, can Vettel hold back Sainz in the battle for 6th? Sainz having 2 stopped on a new set of mediums, or a newer set of mediums, and Vettel on a much older set of soft tyres. This could be tough work for Vettel to defend. And that Raikkonen move, Grosjean basically jinked in a similar way to how he did at Silverstone a couple of weeks ago. The difference is he had the straight-talking Kimi Raikkonen behind him this time, so that'll be another one for the FIA. But he moved so marginally that I don't think that was a big problem, actually.
Lap 60 of 66, across the line comes Vettel, 6th position. Right behind him is the papaya orange McLaren of Carlos Sainz. How hard is Vettel going to fight? He's not really going to have a huge chance to fight. Covers the inside. The McLaren sweeps around the outside and gets up into 6th place. Vettel down to 7th. Could still get a couple of points here, Vettel. It's not all over for him by any stretch of the imagination. He's currently winning the driver of the day vote, 21% to Verstappen's 18%. So good job this from Sebastian Vettel.
He's still got 4 seconds to Alex Albon, who now it's not clear air that's the problem. It seems to be just pace for Albon that's the problem. He pitted a similar lap to Sainz onto the same tyre, but Sainz much quicker right now in the McLaren compared to the Red Bull. So that's the next man that Vettel's got to try and hold back now for 7th place, which still from 11th on the grid in a midfield Ferrari would be a good drive.
Hamilton coming now through the final couple of corners once more, and yeah, Daniel Eckersley tweeting, Nichols playing the past form card when guessing the Haas there. It was also, Daniel, when I thought it was Magnussen, not Grosjean, it was also because I thought maybe this was going to explain his massive time loss that I was speaking about at the same time. So it was both of those things that made me think it might have been Magnussen.
It's a tough pick when you play the past form card with the Haas drivers, though, isn't it, sometimes?
Yeah. Lap 61 and 66, Hamilton leading. Verstappen second, Bottas now 6.2 seconds back from Verstappen in third place, but not going to be making any progress there. Hamilton's going to be extending his championship lead to 37 points, 38 points, because Hamilton has the fastest lap. Might see Bottas going for a fastest lap in the closing stages.
We might see Hamilton go for a fastest lap in the closing stages, potentially. Not only he could stay out, but he's got 16.5 seconds to Verstappen. He's lapping a second quicker. He almost could have a free pit stop to his nearest rival by the end of the Grand Prix.
Vettel's lead over Albon was 4 seconds in 7th place. It's now, Jenny, down to 1.5.
Yeah, absolutely. His race engineer's just been on as well, saying, by the way, there's no more rain. There wasn't any rain in the first place. They predicted rain at lap 50. You'll be pleased to know no rain coming now. Again.
Yeah, I
was talking about that rain that was 5 kilometres away.
Yeah, that's true. I always get sucked in to the rain conversation when, oh, there's going to be rain, and I know in my heart there isn't going to be rain, but there we go. Replay of Romain Grosjean having a little bit of a wheel bang, and then bouncing over the curbs. That was with Antonio Giovinazzi, the other Alfa Romeo, and Giovinazzi now up into 17th position. Grosjean really struggling down into 18th. Haas.
I just run over a big piece of carbon on the track. Someone's wing came up.
Okay, so that was may have been damage from that incident that then Hamilton ran over, but it's all looking okay for him at the moment. Very surprised this morning to hear Haas drivers, Grosjean and Magnussen, saying, yeah, after Friday we thought we were in a really good place, because they were super quick in the practice sessions. We all thought that too, but then they just went back to being in their normal position, and I'm really surprised that they thought they were having a good Friday, but now they're just back to normal. Not that there's any reason they shouldn't think that, but you know what I mean? You'd think they would know within the team that that wasn't representative. For whatever reason, it wasn't representative.
Grosjean was 6th and 5th in the 2 seconds on Friday, which was a great effort. The field was really tight in the midfield, which it always is, but he was on the right side of it. They only lost a few tenths, but it made them both out in Q1 suddenly. And now they're running 15th and 18th. Grosjean was ahead of Magnussen all weekend until qualifying as well, and then the Dane pipped him, and he's ahead of him in the race as well now. It's a shame to see Alfa Romeo, Haas and Williams constantly propping up the order. If they could just find a few tenths, half a second, then they'd join this chaotic midfield fight, which we get every time between kind of everyone apart from the top 3 right now. Hamilton, Verstappen and Bottas always out there in a league of their own, and then it's everyone else apart from those bottom 3 teams.
Lap 63 of 66 here on BBC Radio 5 Live. The Spanish Grand Prix coming to its conclusion. Hamilton out in front, 18 seconds clear of Verstappen, and he's looking like he's setting the fastest lap of the race, although Valtteri Bottas is trying to do that as well, and in fact is half a second quicker in Sector 1 than Lewis Hamilton. So very good laps coming in from Valtteri Bottas, still nowhere near closing in on passing Max Verstappen for second place. Lando Norris has just had quite a big lock-up on his left front in 10th position, so difficult race this for Norris, and I think it's going to be the first time this season that he's really been well beaten by Carlos Sainz in the Grand Prix.
Sainz has had a great drive. 6th place. What's his gap to Sergio Perez? It is too big. It's nearly 10 seconds with 3 laps to go, so it looks like it will be 6th place at the end of the race. Stroll is comfortably within the 5 seconds of Perez now and will remain there probably to the end of the Grand Prix. 3.5 seconds now as they cross the line, down to less than 3 seconds. So Stroll looking good for 4th, Perez looking good for 5th. That's how they've been since the early laps.
Except the other way around. Well, no, but they would have been the other way around were it not for Perez's time penalty. So interesting that Racing Point were happy to let their drivers do different things. Bottas sets the fastest lap of the race with 3 to go, my apologies, in the Spanish Grand Prix, and he was 10th of a second only quicker than Hamilton's. That was a tight one.
Just 700ths between the 2 Mercedes. Hamilton on his mediums, Bottas on his softs, and the softs won out in round 1, but they've both gone for that fastest lap point with a couple of laps to spare, so we might see one more shootout for that final point for fastest lap.
Everybody lapped up to 3rd position, so Perez backwards have all had a lap put on them. Hamilton leading the way, Verstappen 2nd, Bottas 3rd. And was it on air we said earlier today, or was it off air when you came in and said, oh well, What's going to happen in the Grand Prix today? Well, everyone will do 66 laps. Oh, well, actually, no, 3 of them will.
Yeah, it's happened. It's a 65-lap race, apart from for the top 3, who will do the full quota of 66.
Under investigation now is Grosjean and Giovinazzi with that little incident down the first corner, and in comes Bottas then. So Valtteri Bottas, having already secured the fastest lap, is just going to go belt some braces and make sure he does get the fastest lap of the Grand Prix, which is worth a point. So that means, well, Hamilton's lead will still extend to 37 points at the top of the championship, but it won't extend quite so much over his teammate Bottas. Bottas will be getting further away, down in 3rd place. Very busy in the middle of the pack, all queued up behind Sebastian Vettel in 7th place, though. Vettel, Albon, Gasly, Norris, Ricciardo, Kvyat, all right together on circuit.
Bottas now comes out comfortably behind them and will have one shot at fastest lap on the mediums, but as you say, already got that. Great scrap now. Vettel still running in 7th on that soft tyres, made them last. And a big battle. Norris having a lock-up down at turn 5, looking at the back of Pierre Gasly. Vettel 7th, Albon 8th, Gasly 9th, Norris 10th and Ricciardo 11th, all squabbling for the lower points and all closing on the slower Sebastian Vettel, who's still on those old soft tyres, and ahead of Alex Albon, who's not quite within a second to get DRS either right now.
We're getting a replay of Romain Grosjean coming into turns 7 and 8. Oh, and he spun it. Well, no, he's half spun it. Wow, 45 degrees to the track there, Romain Grosjean. And he has absolutely lit the car up as he slid sideways, not dissimilar to when he spun around and powered into the oncoming pack a few years ago, but he managed to save this one and keep it in a straight line.
It was the exact opposite, Jack. Last time he dumped the, put the right pedal down, loads of throttle. This time he hammered the left pedal down and really anchored it on the brakes, which managed to turn the car around. A little bit Verstappen in Brazil a couple of years ago.
Indeed. Lap 66 of 66 for Lewis Hamilton. He is coming down through the final couple of corners now. He's climbing the hill up towards the long right-hander of turn 12, the highest point on this Barcelona circuit. And in a commanding season of racing, Hamilton is going to extend his championship lead even further. He's going to make it 4 wins from the first 6 races of 2020. We still don't know how many Grand Prix there are going to be this year, but Hamilton looks like he's on his way to a 7th Formula One world title. 4 wins out of 6 for Hamilton as he comes around the final corner, takes the checkered flag and wins again. This time victorious in Barcelona, 23 seconds ahead of Max Verstappen, who is now his main title rival. His teammate Valtteri Bottas can only finish in 3rd place. Hamilton wins, a 37-point lead now at the top of the Drivers' Championship. Here comes Verstappen through the final corner and out across the line, and he is going to finish in a comfortable 2nd place. Bottas is going to set the fastest lap of the race. Perez, Stroll and Sainz have already finished 4th, 5th and 6th. Vettel is going to hold on to 7th position. Alex Albon, after a miserable race, not really through his own making, comes across the line in 8th. 9th is Gasly, 10th is Norris, 11th is Ricciardo, 12th is Kvyat. Bottas then comes across the line, 44 seconds behind Lewis Hamilton, but he does take the point for the fastest lap of the Grand Prix. Hamilton wins in Spain. Verstappen 2nd, Bottas 3rd. And you know what? Ricciardo might get my driver of the day today. We'll find out on the Checker Flag podcast later on.
Get in there, Lewis. Nice work, mate. That was an awesome drive. Such spectacular tyre management and then pace at the end. Fantastic.
A dominant drive.
Wow, it's in a different zone then. Didn't even know it was last lap. Awesome. Thank you so much, guys.
Hamilton saying
setup was awesome today. Great job. Marcus and all the guys, thank you so much.
His 4th victory in a row in Barcelona for Lewis Hamilton.
Smiles all round, metronomic for Hamilton, 24 seconds ahead of Max Verstappen at the end. Great job from Verstappen, though, once again finishing ahead of Valtteri Bottas.
Yeah.
We probably haven't got a title battle, but we might have a battle for 2nd in the championship this year. Bottas lost it at the start. Fastest lap at the end will be little consolation. 45 seconds away from Hamilton with that late pit stop. Just didn't show the same pace as Hamilton. Never looked like he was going to pass Verstappen today.
Yeah, all good. I think we maximized our result again, so yeah, good points.
I might have misheard. Did you say Ricciardo was your driver of the day today?
No, maybe. I think he's in contention. I think in that Renault that was very, very slow, he's come through. He's finished 16 seconds ahead of his teammate. I thought he had a strong race. It's probably also maybe Carlos. I don't know. I just thought Ricciardo stood out as a good drive.
Wow, I forgot he was racing today, Jack.
Well, this is the thing,
Started
Jolien.
13th, finished 11th with one retirement ahead of him, Charles Leclerc. Driver of the day.
Oh. You gotta keep your eyes open the whole race, Jolien. You can't just focus on the leaders. You got to be watching the whole story play out.
That's odd.
Oh, yeah, good comeback. Right, into the...
I'm sorry, I'm lost for words.
Sebastian Vettel has won the official driver of the day vote. Thoughts?
Yeah, correct. Great drive from Vettel. I don't know what... Ricciardo, if he got 1%, might have been lucky on that one. He did fine compared to his teammate, but no points for Renault. Very disappointing day overall. Vettel, good drive. 7th place, managed to make those soft tyres last till the end. It's more positive for Vettel, bringing 6 points home to Ferrari, with Leclerc getting none today after his issue earlier on.
So, Hamilton climbs out of his Mercedes once again. 4 wins in 6 races now for the Mercedes driver. Stands on top of the car. Points to the Black Lives Matter logo on the top of his helmet. No huge celebrations for Hamilton, just a very muted response. Goes and elbow bumps the whole of his team all the way down the line. And then has a big celebration with all the team that have made their way down there, and he is just unstoppable at the moment in Formula One. Absolutely unstoppable. Valtteri Bottas keeps getting close in qualifying, but there's nothing he can do when it comes to the Grand Prix to stop Hamilton. There's not much Bottas can do when it comes to the Grand Prix to stop Max Verstappen. Verstappen now very clearly the second place man in the championship.